When Sara, 28, is in dire need of a babysitter but doesn't have the money to pay for someone with experience, her only option is 14 years old Mindy. But after being away for only 2 hours, Sara already deeply regrets her decision as she gets extremely worrying text messages from Mindy. "I'm baby," and "call 911." Sara immediately started texting Mindy back asking for an explanation, but again got no response. Now panic was really setting in for Sara. What was happening to her baby? Mindy rushed away from work to get home, while on the phone to 911. She just hoped it would be too late. How could she have ever trusted a 14-year-old to take care of her baby? But what was happening that made babysitter Mindy send that message? Why did she put all of her faith in a 14-year-old girl? And would Sara be home in time to save her baby? Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. From the moment Sara knew that she was pregnant, things took a turn in her life. While she was extremely happy about it herself, her longtime boyfriend at the time, Steven, wasn't. He didn't want to be a father as he found himself too young at only 25 years old, and he was not ready for that kind of commitment. Sara was a bit older at 28 and felt like it was the perfect time for her. Her mind was already made up, something that irritated Steven greatly. The disagreement led to a lot of arguments between the pair as Steven was adamant that she should let it get aborted. Sara felt like he didn't give her a choice. Eventually, the difficult situation led to the pair breaking up after being in a relationship for 3 years. Steven informed Sara that he would refuse to pay any kind of child support. Sara had to make her way through the long 9 months of pregnancy alone, and eventually even gave birth alone. She had to get back to work as quickly as possible, but how was this possible when she had a newborn baby at home? She could not afford daycare without additional financial support, and even most babysitters were asking too much money. There was only one option Sara could think of. There was a 14-year-old girl named Mindy living in her street that had recently babysat another kid in the neighborhood. She had liked this so much that she had put flyers in everybody's mailboxes offering her services. Mindy was asking only a fraction of what older and more experienced babysitters wanted. But the big problem was that even though the 14-year-old girl had been a babysitter before, she decided to give it a shot and called Mindy to make an appointment with her. During the test day, Sara would stay at home to keep an eye on them, but Mindy would take care of the baby. The results of this test day surprised Sara very much. Mindy was great with baby Kevin. It even seemed like he was crying and acting up a lot less when Mindy was taking care of him than if Sara was doing it herself. After the test day had been completed, Sara feels confident in letting Mindy take care of Kevin by herself, and she informs her that she can start again next week. Sara went to work Monday evening. She would have mostly shifts starting in the late afternoon or evening so that she could work around Mindy's school schedule. She handed over the keys and gave the final instructions. Then, with a somewhat heavy heart, she left. The plan was to get home immediately after her shift, which would only take about 5 hours. The baby would be in bed after probably only an hour of babysitting, so there was very little room for things to go wrong. 5 hours seemed like nothing, but as it would turn out, she would have to rush home after 2 hours already. Sara was in text contact with Mindy all the time to get updates about how everything was going. The first couple of messages were all fine and in the line of "he has eaten" or "I changed his diaper." But then the messages stayed silent for a little while, and Sara started to get worried. Sara sent a couple of text messages without getting a reply from Mindy. Her heart was already starting to beat faster. Why was Mindy not responding? Could something be going on? The 2 text messages read, "I'm baby," and "call 911." Sara immediately sent messages back asking Mindy to explain herself, but she again got no response. Without even informing her boss, Sara left work. She was on the phone with 911, explaining the situation as she was rushing home as fast as she could. The police officer on the other line told Sara that they would be there in 15 minutes, but Sara knew that she herself would be there sooner. Was this something she could face alone? That she dared to face alone? She arrived at home in 5 minutes, while it should have normally taken her at least 10. What she did see was that there wasn't anything particularly off with her own house. Everything seemed just like she left it. But then, what was going on? Sara used her key to get into the house, and at first glance, everything seemed to be in order. But when she started to call Mindy's name without getting a response, she suddenly knew that something had to be very wrong. Sara went through the house at top speed, looking everywhere and calling Mindy's name over and over again, but nothing. Now the worst-case scenarios started playing in Sara's head. When Sara was about to go into full panic mode, she heard police sirens arrive in front. The police told Sara that they were first going to do a thorough search of the house themselves. They'd also asked Sara to call Mindy's parents to see if she may have gone there. Sara had not even thought about that in the blind panic and immediately picked up the phone. She had some hope for a good end to all this again. This was quickly crushed when Mindy's mother told her that she had not come home, and she thought Mindy was still babysitting at her house. Now Mindy's mother was also panicking and immediately made her way to the house. By this point, the police had completed their search of the house. They didn't find any signs of forced entry or anything, and had not found any trace of Mindy and the baby either. They did conclude that Mindy must have left in a hurry, as there was still half an almost full glass of orange juice and an avocado sandwich on the table. The police are now considering the potential for a worst-case scenario. They get ready to send out a town-wide Amber Alert for Mindy and the baby when they suddenly hear something coming from the backyard. Everybody immediately runs around the house to see where the sound comes from. It sounded like somebody's voice. When they didn't hear it again, Sara called out for Mindy again. But this time, she finally got a response. From up in the old treehouse, they heard the scared voice of a little girl saying, "I'm up here." A police officer climbed up the tree, and moments later, everybody's heart rate finally started to go down a bit. It was Mindy, and she was with the baby. Luckily, both of them were unharmed, which was by far the most important thing. But Mindy had a lot of explaining to do now, because by this point, everybody was confused by the situation. But Mindy had an answer for everything. Apparently, someone did come into the house when Sara wasn't home. The reason that the police found no sign of forced entry was because there weren't any. And this wasn't because Mindy had opened the door for this unknown man, as Sara had strictly forbidden this. The man had come into the house with a key and had started looking through it. Stacy was in the living room at the time with the sleeping baby by her side. When the man entered the house, Mindy immediately tried to get away. She had no idea where to go, but when she got into the garden, she suddenly remembered there was an old, almost hidden tree house in the garden that she used to plant in before Sara had moved in. The baby had still been asleep through all of this. Mindy quickly climbed up into the treehouse and wanted to text Sara about what was happening, but only got to "I'm baby" and call 911 before the unknown man stepped into the garden. Sara asks Mindy to describe the unknown man to her, and after she is done, there is no doubt left in her mind. Only one man could be responsible for this, and Sara knew him all too well. This had to be Stephen, her ex-boyfriend, and the dad of her baby. She did not know if he still had a key to the house, but the description matched him perfectly. It had to be him, and she immediately called him up. He answered the phone calmly and started the conversation with, "I was just about to call you." Sara is raging on Stephen, who still had a tough time understanding what he did wrong. He just wanted to come by and see his child. It had been a while. He hadn't asked beforehand, as he knew that there was a chance that Mindy would say now. But he figured that if he just showed up, he had a better chance of being allowed to see his child. But boy, was he wrong. Mindy took the case to court in order to get a restraining order against Stephen, so that he could never get near her or the baby again without her permission. He had overstepped his boundaries big time. The judge also ordered Stephen to pay a sizable sum of money to Mindy for nearly traumatizing her and monthly child support to Sara. Stephen put up no fight at all in court and just hoped that he could be forgiven for his mistake. Mindy has luckily been doing fine ever since. Sara stayed home with the baby another month, and afterward, Mindy started babysitting again. Up till now, this has gone without any further complications.